The genetic code, often described as the blueprint of life, also serves as an extraordinary historical archive. For the Filipino people, their deoxyribonucleic acid DNA is not a singular thread but a rich tapestry, a profound map of history woven across thousands of years and countless migrations. The remarkable nature of Filipino DNA stems not from isolation, but from its exceptional depth, intricate diversity, and the layered history it encapsulates. This genetic complexity reflects centuries of resilience, adaptation, and an openness to the world, challenging any simplistic notions of identity. The Philippine archipelago, strategically positioned as a crossroads in the Asia-Pacific region, has historically served as a crucial gateway for the movement of human populations. This geographical significance has led to a multi-layered history of human settlement, resulting in a genetic landscape that is uniquely diverse. This video will embark on a scientific exploration of this genetic heritage, tracing the deep roots of the earliest inhabitants, examining the profound impact of the Austronesian expansion, and detailing the subsequent waves of migration and admixture that have collectively shaped the Filipino gene pool. The aim is to present this complex narrative with scientific rigor, respect for cultural heritage, and a clear, accessible tone, celebrating the profound richness embedded within Filipino identity. The story of human presence in the Philippines reaches far back into prehistory, long before the more widely recognized migrations. Archaeological investigations have established a timeline of human occupation spanning over 700,000 years, with evidence of early hominins on Luzon Island. While the earliest traces are from these archaic human forms, anatomically modern humans arrived much later, approximately 40,000 years ago. This long period of human activity on the islands preceding the major Austronesian expansion by tens of millennia fundamentally indicates that the peopling of the archipelago was a far more complex and multi-layered process than a simple linear migration model might suggest. The islands were not uninhabited when later groups arrived. Rather, they were already home to established populations, necessitating interactions and varying degrees of assimilation rather than mere replacement. Significant early archaeological sites provide tangible evidence of these ancient inhabitants. Tabon Cave in Palawan, for instance, has yielded fossil remains of modern humans, including a tibia dated to approximately 47,000 years ago, a mandible to 31,000 years ago, and a skull cap to 16,500 years ago. Further evidence from Bubog 1 in Occidental Mindoro, situated in the Wallachian part of the archipelago, corroborates this deep history. Moreover, groundbreaking archaeological research in Mindoro indicates that early human inhabitants possessed advanced maritime technology and seafaring capabilities as far back as 35,000 years ago. This is evidenced by innovative shell tools, including adzes made from giant clamshells dating back 7,000 to 9,000 years, which bear striking similarities to tools found across island Southeast Asia and as far as Papua New Guinea. Early burial customs, such as flexed burials found on Ilan Island dating to around 5,000 years ago, also suggest shared ideological and social influences across a vast maritime network during the Stone Age. These findings collectively portray early inhabitants not as isolated groups, but as maritime pioneers engaged in extensive cultural and technological exchange across the region. Among the earliest documented populations in the Philippines are the diverse ethnic groups collectively referred to as Negrito peoples, a term coined by 16th-century Spanish missionaries. These groups, including the Eta, Ati, Dumagat, Batak, and Mamanwa, inhabit isolated parts of Southeast Asia and the Andaman Islands. Historically, they were often mistakenly considered a single, closely related population due to perceived physical similarities such as dark skin, frizzy hair, and short stature. However, modern genetic studies have revealed significant internal diversity among these groups, challenging these outdated, simplistic classifications. Genetic analysis indicates that Negrito peoples are most closely related to East Asian and Oceanian populations and are not genetically closer to Africans than other Eurasian groups, despite superficial physical resemblances. This finding underscores that physical traits like skin color and hair texture can arise independently in different populations through a process known as convergent evolution, where similar adaptations occur in response to similar environmental pressures, such as tropical rainforests. This deeper understanding moves beyond outward appearance to reveal the true, complex genetic relationships. The Negrito peoples are generally considered descendants of the earliest East Eurasian groups, either Australasian or Basal East Asian lineages, likely representing an initial single migration wave that followed a southern route into Southeast Asia. Philippine Negrito groups, such as the Eta and Agta, are estimated to have diverged from East Asians and Andamanese populations approximately 45,000 years ago, showing a closer genetic affinity to other Oceanian populations like Melanesians. Their paternal genetic heritage is characterized by ancient founding lineages in the Asia-Pacific region, including Y-DNA haplogroups CRPS for Y and KM9, which predate the Austronesian expansion. Some CRPS for Y haplotypes in particular show a genetic association with indigenous Australians, further highlighting these deep, ancient connections. While later agriculturalist groups largely assimilated many Negrito communities, their distinctive genetic footprint remains a significant component of the overall Filipino gene pool, especially within certain indigenous populations. The most widely recognized and significant migratory event shaping the linguistic and cultural landscape of the Philippines, and indeed much of Southeast Asia and Oceania, is the Austronesian expansion. This theory proposes that Austronesian-speaking peoples originated from Asia, specifically following an out-of-Taiwan model, and began their remarkable spread across vast stretches of the globe approximately 6,000 years ago. These seafaring people are believed to have first reached the Philippines around 3,500 BC, laying the foundational genetic and cultural groundwork for the population that thrives there today. The theory effectively accounts for the striking similarities in culture, physical features, and language observed across numerous distant Austronesian-speaking countries, with 87 Austronesian languages still spoken in the Philippines today. While the out-of-Taiwan model provides a crucial framework, recent large-scale genetic studies have introduced important nuances, challenging the notion of an exclusive or singular migratory event. Genetic evidence, particularly from mitochondrial DNA mtDNA analysis, suggests that the mitochondrial DNA found in Pacific Islanders was present in island Southeast Asia much earlier than the 4,000-year mark typically associated with the main Austronesian expansion from Taiwan. This indicates that the region was already populated by diverse groups with deep ancestral roots. Furthermore, these studies suggest that the genetic contribution from the expansion originating in Taiwan might account for only about 20% of the population in the broader island Southeast Asian region. This observation reveals that the spread of Austronesian languages and culture was not necessarily accompanied by a complete genetic replacement of existing populations through a massive population movement, often metaphorically referred to as an express train. Instead, the widespread adoption of Austronesian languages may have occurred through other mechanisms such as the influence of an elite group of migrants or the spread of new religious or philosophical ideas which were then emulated by pre-existing local populations. This complex interplay highlights that linguistic and cultural diffusion can operate independently of or in conjunction with significant genetic shifts, demonstrating a more nuanced understanding of how human societies evolve and interact. Indeed, a comprehensive study involving over 1,000 individuals from 115 indigenous Philippine populations revealed that the islands were populated by at least 5 distinct waves of human migration over the last 50,000 years, further contradicting an exclusive out-of-Taiwan model. These waves include the initial northern and southern Negritos, followed by Manobo, Sama, Papuan, and Cordilleran-related populations. This multi-layered history underscores that the Philippines served as a dynamic and crucial gateway for the continuous movement of people, profoundly shaping the genetic landscape of the entire Asia-Pacific region. The Austronesian expansion left distinct genetic signatures that are widely observed in the Filipino population today. These genetic markers, particularly Y chromosome DNA, Y-DNA for paternal lineages, and mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA for maternal lineages, provide compelling evidence of these ancient migratory paths. The genetic narrative of the Philippines extends beyond the earliest inhabitants and the Austronesian expansion to include numerous subsequent migrations and periods of genetic admixture. Genetic admixture occurs when individuals from two or more previously isolated populations interbreed, resulting in a new population with a mixed gene pool. This process of intermingling is fundamental to understanding the profound complexity and uniqueness of Filipino DNA, as it highlights how diverse genetic threads have woven together over millennia. Scientific studies have revealed that the Philippine Islands were populated by at least 5 distinct waves of human migration over the last 50,000 years, each contributing to the rich genetic mosaic observed today. These waves include northern and southern Negritos, representing the earliest known waves with genetic ties to Australian and Papuan groups. Following these were Manobo and Sama-related populations, primarily populating the southern Philippines. Notably, Sama groups exhibit high genetic affinities with Austroasiatic-speaking populations in mainland Southeast Asia, such as the Mlabri and Tin, suggesting a divergence from a common East Asian branch before the split of Han, Dai, and kin from Amis, Atayal, or Cordillerans. Southern Negrito groups, in particular, show evidence of additional Papuan-related genetic contributions. Cordilleran-related populations, whose ancestors diverged from indigenous Taiwanese peoples approximately 8,000 years ago, predated the arrival of paddy field rice agriculture in the Philippines by about 2,500 years. Some of their descendants remain among the least admixed East Asian groups, carrying an ancestry shared by all Austronesian-speaking populations, indicating a distinct and significant early branch of the Austronesian lineage. Additionally, genetic signals of Northeast Asian ancestry, originating from the coastal China-Taiwan area, have been identified, particularly dispersed into the Batanes Islands and coastal regions of Luzon. Beyond these ancient waves, subsequent historical interactions, trade, and colonial periods introduced further layers of genetic diversity. Evidence suggests a notable, though often underestimated, South Asian genetic influence in the Philippines. Minimal South Asian gene flow began approximately 1,000 years ago. The presence of Indian mitochondrial DNA haplogroups, specifically M5-258 and M5-A, indicates migrations to the archipelago starting from the 5th century AD. This genetic signal is linked to the integration of Southeast Asia into Indian Ocean trading networks around 2,000 years ago, with South Asian genetic markers extending into the Philippines, particularly among the Sama-Bajau communities. A recent genetic study specifically found that 10 to 20% of Cebuano ancestry is attributable to South Asian Indian descent, aligning with the historical record of pre-colonial Cebu's practice of Hinduism. Chinese settlers have also significantly contributed to the Filipino gene pool, resulting in an amalgamation of largely Asian islanders. Historical records from the early 20th century suggest that pure Chinese populations reached 1.35 million, and mixed Chinese Filipinos constituted about 20% of the total population at certain points in history. Genetic markers consistently indicate notable East and Southeast Asian influences within the Filipino genetic makeup. The widespread Y-DNA haplogroup O2M1-2, common in many East Asian populations including Chinese, is also found with high frequency among Filipinos, reflecting these historical connections. The Spanish colonial period, lasting over 3 centuries, introduced European genetic components into the Filipino population. However, the extent of this genetic legacy is a subject of nuanced interpretation. One study indicated a limited genetic legacy of Spanish colonization, with less than 1% of all individuals sampled presenting a low level of West Eurasian admixture. Despite this, other genetic studies have detected the European Y-DNA haplogroup R1b, which is common in Spain and Western Europe, in 12 to 13% of sampled Filipinos. This presence is attributed to immigration from Spain and Latin America during the colonial era. Low-level European ancestry is also observed in some urbanized lowlanders and specific ethnolinguistic groups such as the Cebuano, Ilocano, and Tagalog. Historical censuses from the 1700s reported that approximately 5% of the population were mixed Spanish Filipinos or pure Spanish Filipinos. The varied findings regarding European genetic contribution highlight a complex interplay between cultural adoption and genetic flow. While Spanish cultural and linguistic influences were widespread, leading to the adoption of Spanish as an official language by many, the overall genetic assimilation across the entire population appears to have been less pervasive compared to other former Spanish colonies in the Americas. This suggests that cultural Hispanization occurred more broadly than large-scale genetic intermarriage or replacement across the entire Filipino demographic. Beyond these major influences, the Filipino gene pool also carries traces of other, more minor, contributions. The Y-DNA haplogroup QM242, which has its highest frequency among Native Americans and Asian Siberians, has been found in a small percentage of sampled Filipino males. This suggests a connection, albeit minor, potentially linked to colonial settlers from Mexico who arrived during the Spanish galleon trade, as Mexico itself has significant Native American populations. Additionally, there are indications of traces from African ancestors, possibly from Madagascar, further underscoring the Philippines' role as a global crossroads influenced by diverse historical movements and trade routes. A comprehensive DNA study conducted by the National Geographic's The Genographic Project in 2008-2009, based on genetic testing of 80,000 Filipinos, provides a quantitative summary of the average Filipino's autosomal gene pool. This study found the composition to be approximately 54% Southeast Asia and Oceania, predominantly indigenous Austronesian roots including contributions from earlier Negrito groups. 36% East Asian, primarily influences from Chinese and Taiwanese populations reflecting various migration waves. 5% Southern European, representing the genetic legacy from Spanish colonization, though often limited in widespread impact. 3% South Asian, contributions from ancient trade networks and migrations, particularly notable in certain regions like Cebu. And 2% Native American, minor contributions potentially linked to historical ties with colonial Mexico. This breakdown illustrates that while Filipinos are indeed considerably admixed, the vast majority of their genetic makeup, around 94%, derives from the East, Southeast Asian human lineage, predominantly Austronesian. This composition reveals a predominant Asian and Oceanian ancestry, complemented by smaller, yet significant, contributions from other regions, painting a vivid picture of a truly global heritage. Beyond the broad ancestral components, the uniqueness of Filipino DNA is further expressed in the remarkable internal diversity found among its numerous ethnolinguistic groups. The Philippines is home to over 100 distinct ethnolinguistic groups, each with its own unique culture, language, and traditions. This rich cultural tapestry is mirrored by complex, albeit sometimes subtle, genetic variations across the archipelago. Major groups include the Tagalog, Cebuano, Ilocano, and various Visayan peoples, alongside numerous indigenous communities such as the Igorot, Moro, Lumad, and the various Negrito peoples. Genetic studies have delved into the relationships and distinctions between these diverse groups, revealing a nuanced picture of admixture and genetic isolation. The Negrito peoples are genetically and phenotypically distinct from the other Austronesian-speaking ethnic groups that form the majority of the Filipino population. While Negritos are primarily of their ancient, basal East Eurasian lineage with only minor Austronesian admixture, most lowland Filipinos, such as the Tagalog, are predominantly Austronesian around 90% with a smaller Negrito genetic component. Philippine Negritos derive their ancestry from a complex blend, including Australasians, Papuan-related, basal East Asians, and later Austroasiatic and Austronesian waves, resulting in an overall East Asian-related ancestry of 35 to 65% today. Despite these general trends, genetic studies emphasize that there is no support for a simple dichotomy between Negrito and non-Negrito groups and instead highlight the diversity and heterogeneity of groups. This indicates a complex history of varying degrees of admixture and assimilation rather than strict genetic separation. For instance, some Eta people in Luzon, such as the Eta Magbacan and Batan, are identified as among the most pure Negrito people, demonstrating the preservation of distinct ancient lineages within the archipelago. A particularly compelling aspect of internal Filipino genetic diversity is observed in the Cordilleran peoples, often referred to as Igorites, residing in the mountain ranges of northern Luzon. These groups, including the Bontic, Kankanaey, Ibaloy, and Ifugao, are believed to represent a more direct link to the ancestral Austronesian populations. Genetic studies indicate that the Cordillerans migrated into the Philippines prior to the widespread arrival of rice agriculture approximately 2,500 years ago. Significantly, some Cordilleran groups remain among the least admixed East Asian groups that carry an ancestry shared by all Austronesian-speaking populations, thereby adding further complexities to the out-of-Taiwan model. This finding suggests that these highland groups may serve as a crucial genetic time capsule, preserving a more direct genetic continuity with the early Austronesian settlers than many lowland groups who have experienced more extensive admixture from later migrations, for example, Chinese, Spanish. This challenges the common perception that lowland populations are the sole or primary representatives of Filipino ancestry and underscores the importance of studying diverse indigenous groups for a complete genetic picture. Interestingly, many Igorites can appear paler than many Cs or even half-white or East Asians despite being purer Austronesians than lowland Filipinos, illustrating that physical appearance does not always directly correlate with genetic ancestry. The intricate genetic relationships among Filipino groups are a result of a dynamic interplay of ancient and recent migrations, genetic admixture, and periods of isolation driven by sociocultural, economic, and geographical factors. Studies have shown that geographic distance does not always correlate with genetic distance between some Filipino groups, indicating unique local population dynamics and historical trajectories. For example, the notable South Asian ancestry found in Cebuanos, or the patchy distribution of specific Y-DNA haplogroups across different ethnolinguistic groups, exemplify this profound internal complexity. This rich internal mosaic is a testament to the diverse paths and interactions that have shaped communities across the archipelago over millennia. The DNA of Filipinos is indeed unique, not due to a singular, isolated genetic trait, but because it embodies an extraordinary depth, diversity, and resilience forged through millennia of dynamic human history. It is a living testament to the archipelago's role as a crucial crossroads, a melting pot where ancient and recent lineages have converged and intermingled. From the earliest hominins inhabiting Luzon over 700,000 years ago, through the arrival of anatomically modern humans and the enduring legacy of the Negrito peoples, to the profound influence of the Austronesian expansion and subsequent waves of Chinese, Indian, European, and even American contributions, the Filipino gene pool is a rich chronicle of global human movement. The scientific understanding of this history is continuously evolving, moving beyond simplistic models to embrace the complex realities of multiple, often overlapping, migration events and cultural diffusions. The presence of both deeply ancient and more recent genetic markers within the population illustrates a continuous process of settlement and interaction, creating a truly layered genetic heritage. This complex genetic fabric empowers Filipinos to embrace a layered, evolving, and inclusive identity that is rooted in both deep history and modern global movements. It challenges any monolithic ideas of what it means to be Filipino, celebrating instead the myriad threads that constitute this vibrant genetic tapestry. The story of the Filipino people, as inscribed in their DNA, is one of survival, remarkable adaptability, and an unbreakable spirit. As scientific research continues to explore new archaeological sites and refine genetic analyses, even more chapters of this epic tale will undoubtedly come to light. This ongoing journey of discovery means that the understanding of Filipino DNA is not static but an evolving narrative, fostering a mindset of continuous learning and a profound appreciation for the complexity of human history. Every Filipino carries within them a piece of this vast past, a spark of the ancestors who shaped this extraordinary land, and a legacy that will continue to evolve for generations to come.